Let's go kill this son of a...
Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. This is the Radicator, and in this video we are going to review a game that I have been playing for quite some time. Since January. I bought it right after Christmas because there's usually a nice sale on Steam after Christmas, and that game is Red Dead Redemption 2, a game that I've been following for quite some time because I am quite a big fan of the Western genre, and the idea of having a shooting game in the Wild West is very appealing to me, which is why after Christmas, when it got on sale on Steam, I couldn't resist. I eventually got it, and I have been enjoying every single minute of it, guys. This is the review of Red Dead Redemption 2. Here we go, let's get started. Now, what is actually Red Dead Redemption 2 is actually the prequel of the previous game Red Dead Redemption, which takes place a couple of years before, actually 12 years before the original games. The original game takes place in 1911, Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place in 1899, and we are following the adventures of John Marston, just like the first game, but also especially Arthur Morgan, which is one of the members of the gang that you have to hunt down in the original game. In the second game, in Red Dead Redemption 2, you have to take part of that Vandaling game that you're hunting down in the original game and see why that particular gang eventually fell apart and how John Marston got to where he got to in the original game. And since it's a prequel, it follows the same patterns of the other prequels that we have seen throughout, the past. I'm thinking, for example, of the Star Wars prequels. In the Star Wars prequels, you get to see a lot of new characters who eventually all get to die because you don't see them in the original Star Wars trilogy. Well, that's pretty much the same here in Red Dead Redemption 2. You get to introduce to a lot of new characters as well that you don't get to see in the original Red Dead Redemption, and then they eventually die. But again, this also shows the tough reality of the Wild West back in those days in the late 19th century. It was a violent period, and so a lot of people had premature deaths, which is what you're going to experience as well in this particular game. So don't get attached to the characters too much. It's a sad story, and a lot of players are gonna die, kind of like a tragedy actually. The story itself is quite long. It took me about 60 hours to complete the main quest, guys. I did not even do the side quest. I barely touched the side quest. Just completing the main quest takes about 60 hours. So it is great to see that there are still companies out there who make great comprehensive single player stories. Kudos to Rockstar here for still sticking to single player games despite having a very prominent multiplayer element to the game as well. So it's great to see that players who do enjoy single player stories are not left out. And the single player story here takes place originally, we start at the very beginning of the demise of the Vandaling gang when they have this failed bank robbery at the city of Blackwater, and we start there with their escape in the mountains. It's pretty dramatic. There's a sense that the gang could be dying at any second. It's great that they are in this very mountainous, snowy area. You get to already experience the strength of the game engine, which we're going to talk about later. And so the main idea here throughout the story is survival. How are we going to survive throughout all of the events that are going to happen during the game, and what is going to be the cost of that survival, especially with this kind of outlaw lifestyle that tends to be disappearing at the end of the 19th century as the United States, especially the western part of the United States, gets cleaner in terms of the law being more omnipresent and more civilized at the same time. This is going to be the leitmotif that is going to go throughout the game, and it is going to become gradually heavier and heavier, and it's going to bring more pressure to the characters, the gang, and the atmosphere throughout the game. Now, this game is not called Red Dead Redemption for nothing. Redemption the idea of redemption is very important throughout this whole series, in the first game as well as here in the second game as well. And here, as you are following Arthur Morgan, the idea is that at some point, this character is going to have to be, redeemed for all the wrongdoing that he has committed in his past. And even in the game, you do experience some of the wrong things that he does, probably because he is influenced by the gang leader himself. He complains a lot about the things that he has to do, but eventually he does them himself and he kills a lot of people. He gets more and more aware that his actions are wrong, and it becomes a heavier burden over time, which is why by the end of his story, the Arthur Morgan stories, he tries his best to redeem himself and do as many good deeds as possible. He tries to save as much as his friends as possible. Of course, he cannot do that entirely. A lot of them die, which makes him even more motivated to correct his wrongs. That is going to be the main arc of the story, and eventually, as we transition to John Marston, that is going to be also what he's going to try to do. These characters do understand that they have been on the wrong side of the law, the wrong side of history as well, and they try their best to correct their mistakes. That is the main thread of redemption, and at the same time, it does feel good and bad, because it does feel good to be doing those good deeds in the game, but it feels bad. It feels like it's a shame. It feels like they could have done it a little bit earlier, and that is how you get attached to these characters emotionally as well, because you think of their potential and what they could have done if they had made better decisions throughout their lives. Alright, enough with the setting of the plot. Let's talk now about the gameplay. And if you've played GTA 5, the gameplay is pretty similar, except that, of course, here you don't really have cars. We have horses and carriages instead, which is very interesting because it completely slows down the pace of the game, which is great because it makes you enjoy the environments which are absolutely gorgeous. You get to experience those fantastic, rivers, mountains, prairies, valleys. The game is absolutely stunning. And the ability here, or being forced to enjoy the game at a slow motion compared to a fast-paced environment like in GTA, really makes you enjoy the settings and makes you completely immersed in this Western environment. Now, of course, this is also a shooter. I think that shooting here is a little bit too easy. I would have hoped maybe shooting being a little bit more realistic, feels a little bit arcadey, but again, it is the same engine as in GTA, the same developers as in GTA, so that's why they want to make it a little bit more accessible. They want to make it more fun, and as far as I'm concerned, I've really enjoyed gunning down baddies, right, or even the law in Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think that it works quite well. But don't think that because you can kill a lot of NPCs or players in Red Dead Redemption that you'll be able to do that in games like, for example, Battlefield or Battlefront or even Star Citizen. That's not going to be the same thing at all. But if fighting is not your thing, there are plenty of other activities to do in Red Dead Redemption. You can go fishing, hunting, you can craft, you can actually explore as well. You can look for specific locations or specific animals. You can do a little bit of bounty hunting as well. Well, there's combat there as well, of course, where combat is quite prominent, but it doesn't have to be that way at all. It is a true open world game, and it gives you also the freedom to do whatever you want, especially in the multiplayer aspect of the game, which I haven't touched yet, but if you are interested, I will be making perhaps some videos of Red Dead Online further down the line. Now, of course, those side activities are, as they are calling side activities, they are not going to provide you with the most money in the game, but it does help you survive, especially at the beginning of the game. Now, speaking of survivability, that's what a lot of people are afraid of. It can be off-putting for quite some people, right? The fact that you have to eat and drink in the game, yes, it does, but it's not necessarily compulsory at all. It gives you some buffs for sure, and it gives you some debuffs, but it's not going to kill your character if this is not your main focus. Same as maintaining your gun or keeping a good bond with your horse, right? If you don't do it, it's not going to prevent you from playing, but doing so is going to give you some advantages and some buffs, which is why it's better to do it, and it feels rewarding to do it as well. So that's why it's not it's not as overwhelming as people would think. It is not as a constraint as most people would be thinking, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see that. And last but not least, I want to talk about the map, which is absolutely huge. It is the biggest map that has ever been done in a Rockstar game, and that says a lot, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, you don't have cars. The only way you can get around is, by foot or by horse. Of course, you can also fast travel with a stagecoach or by train, but you don't get to experience the vastness of the map, and it feels even larger than what it really is, because you cannot get any faster than how fast your horse can go. And on top of that, the map feels also very diverse. You have tons of various environments. You have swamps environments, which is like the mock-up of the state of Louisiana. You have mountain environments. Some of them are foresty, some of them are snowy. You have more like the Great Plains environments as well, and also the Texas style environment. You have the Wild West, a little bit deserty, right? So that's exactly what I was mentioning here with gameplay. There's lots of diversity in terms of gameplay. There's a lot of diversity in terms of settings as well, and that is also another factor that contributes the game from not getting boring. It always renews itself. You are tired of one particular type of setting, you can just migrate to another area where you're going to have different types of activities, different settings, and it's going almost to feel like a different game, and I absolutely love it. Which is now why I think that the lifespan of the game is, I'm not going to say it is infinite, but it is going to definitely bring you at least 60 hours for the single player game, and that is just with the main quest. If you want to do everything, it's going to get you at least 100 hours plus the multiplayer as well, which is going to provide you several extra 100 hours. So I think that especially if you get this game on discount on Steam, which is what I did, you are definitely getting a great amount of entertainment for your money, and I absolutely love it. This is why I am giving Red Dead Redemption 2 a score of 10 out of 10. It is, in my opinion, it's a perfect game. I have absolutely nothing wrong to say about it, except that maybe shooting is a little bit too easy, but I am nitpicking here. I highly recommend this game. If you haven't picked it up here by 2021, then you should absolutely give it a try. And that is all for this review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, you know what to do. The like and the subscribe buttons are just down there. I'll see you guys tomorrow for more content on the channel. This is the Eradicator. I'll see you guys later. This video is brought to you by the people who support this channel on Patreon and via the join button as well. Supporters of the channel get access to lots of cool perks, such as access to my private Discord, your question answered in the show, you get to know when I'm going to play, and also you get to have a chance to influence the editorial line of the channel. Any help is appreciated, starts at just $1 a month. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later.